For our time today, and I've got a special guest here, Leo, who's going to talk about why your hard work isn't speaking for itself. But before we get going, I wanted to give a chance to thank our sponsor, Dow, for our time here today and share a little bit of a message that they have for us here. So, thank you, Dow.
At Dow, wonder is the foundation of every great achievement. It's what bonds us together, pushes us to keep finding solutions, and lets us create something from nothing. Without that spark, there is no science, no creativity, no thirst for knowledge, or hunger for change. But with it, the breakthroughs our customers need most are just one innovation away. As we work to create a more connected world, a more circular economy, and more climate-conscious technologies and solutions, we're designing products alongside our customers with their biggest challenges in mind, so we can grow with the world around us, starting with our promise to reach zero carbon emissions by 2050. Every solution we find is fueled by wonder and powered by science. It's this fuel that drove our past and propels us to the future. Wait until you see where wonder takes us next.
All right, Dow. Well, thank you so much for sponsoring us today, and we're excited to be here with Leo. And Leo's one of our amazing trainers that'll be joining us for STEM Connect later this fall. So we hope that each one of you will have a chance to join us at STEM Connect, and definitely would love to have you get a chance to get to know him a little bit so that when you come out to the conference, you can kind of get an idea of what he'll be sharing. And Leo is going to be really working with a lot of those that may be not yet a people manager. You might not be leading other people, or this might be early in your career. Like you have not had a chance to really establish your job. You might still be trying to figure out how much to contribute to your 401k. You may be wondering, what is an IRA? How do I pick out a difference between a DMO, HMO, PPO, and all those other three-letter acronyms? And there's a lot happening on, but out of this, we know that your career is very important. And so we brought Leo here because he's such an expert at some of these common things that people struggle with. And so, Leo, yeah, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your passion and what brings you to the table here today.
Thank you, Jim. I'm really excited to be in this hour with all of you. This is my first experience being in front of this audience with SACE. As a facilitator and speaker, I was at the Lotus conference and got to be in the back of the room and witness all of the magic there. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about something I'm really passionate about, which is communication, becoming more self-aware, and being more visible in the workplace. So I'm going to share my screen with just a couple introductory slides because I think a few pictures really tells the whole story. And so I have some pictures that I want to share with you. But first, I'll just say my name is Leo Cheung. I'm from Canada. I live on the West Coast in Victoria. And I've been coaching people in the workplace for the last 10 years, everywhere from, as Jim said, early in their career, all the way up to managers and some executives as well. And why I'm really passionate about talking about visibility, having influence, and being a better communicator is because personally, this isn't my strength. As much as it seems like right now I'm in front of, 40, 50 people, this is something that I had to work and become better at over the last 10, 15 years. And so there's a real personal story and journey that I've gone through that I've wanted to help a lot of people also uncover, because I knew what it was like, the pain and struggle and the challenge of being visible and communicating, and what's it like for me. So I'll just go into a little bit how I was when I was growing up. That's me on the right with my best friend that I grew up with. And I was quite quiet and introverted, very shy. I was a little bit afraid of people. And I remember my mom even telling me that I didn't start speaking until 3 or 4, and they had to bring me to a speech therapist because they were a little worried, like, oh, like Leo's not saying anything. And I think that was just my natural way of being, is I was very inward. I like spending time alone, and I would often be in my room for hours just playing with Lego and building things, just really wanted to be in my own space. And so I was just very gentle, very kind, and really liked to be in my own world. And so being around other people, being in front of groups of people, speaking up in school and high school was not easy for me. And I never did. I was always in the back of the room, and I was just happy putting my head down and just working hard. And here's the twist in the story. Without telling you all of my life story, after I graduated from university, I decided to actually change my life trajectory, and I went to India because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I didn't really have a sense of like, what is my purpose? Where do I want to go? And I had this calling inside to do something different. And I went to India and I became a yoga teacher. That's me graduating from my class, full of joy, full of life, full of passion, of wanting to help other people find themselves, find um, a, a greater sense of freedom in both their body and also their mind. And what this asked of me was to be something that I wasn't really natural at, is be in the front of the room. Because I really wanted to share this passion, but if I wanted to actually do that, I needed to step into something that was unnatural for me. It was incredibly scary. I was nervous all the time. I always had these butterflies in my stomach, and because of the desire to want to have an impact, to want to connect, to want to share what I experienced, I worked on this every day. So that's
Hey,
me in
Leo, by
front
the
of
way, we're seeing a bit of a split screen. I think there's two being pushed out. Um,
two screens.
yeah, or two images overlapping each other here. Yes,
Uh,
if you can drag that over towards the right a little bit more.
right.
It was working earlier in our test run.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, like the right side of your intro slide is still kind of caught up. Maybe you want to try resharing your screen
Okay, let
again?
me get out of there. Are you seeing this slide here?
No, what it is like there's an image in the background that's kind of like frozen.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay, let
here,
me get out of here and then I'll share it again.
yeah, try one
You
more
have
time.
two screens, maybe.
How about
Yeah.
full screen? Let's try full screen. How's that? Can you see everything?
That looks good. Cool.
Awesome. Great.
We see the collage.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So coming back into me having to be in front of the room, that's me in the bottom corner doing crow pose. You know, you'll see that this is really early in my life because that's when DVDs were even popular. And I made a DVD. I was an ambassador for Lululemon and teaching in front of hundreds of people. I decided to also start my own podcast to bring communities of teachers together. And that's me speaking and bringing the yoga community together. And so there's been this long sort of journey of me becoming more out in the community, being in front of people, and allowing me to do what I'm doing today, which is speaking in front of all of you. Even though there are a little bit of nerves in me, I now have this sense of range and freedom, even to be able to be both in my internal world, but also be external and share some of the things that are important and valuable for me. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a understanding into my world and what was it like for me, and share part of me that a lot of people don't actually know, but was a really significant part of who I am and why I'm here today. So I'll just stop sharing my screen because that's all I really wanted to share there. And I want to actually now talk with you, Jim, because
Yeah.
I've just met you actually this year. We have a fairly new relationship. There's a lot of, I want to learn about you. And I'm curious because you've been in the world of working in organizations. I'm curious to hear, what were some of your challenges that you faced when it came to communication, being visible? Like, what was it like for you in those early days?
Yeah, a lot of people are surprised because of the work that I do with so much speaking that I was actually a horrible speaker myself. And I think if I were to trace back like why I mumbled a lot and I kept a lot of thoughts to myself was because I don't think I was in an environment where sharing of ideas was actually elevated. And I think it comes from like, I have STEM-based parents. Maybe part of it could be because I'm Asian in culture, but a lot of it was just hierarchical in nature. Like, if you look at STEM and like, I was a math major, I was an engineering major, and like a lot of us, you're either right or wrong, right? There's no processing
Mhm.
ideas. And I think like, sure, you show your work, but it's always QED, quote, eris demonstratum. Like, this is where I've gotten, this is where I landed. And so I think like when I went from college life to work life, I didn't realize the struggles that I had were tied back to just not feeling the ability to express myself. But it's also the relational aspect of nature. So, I mean, you spend like, 100 hours a week in a computer lab, compiling your data and your math lab and all that stuff. Like there really isn't much social. And yeah, a lot of people in my classes weren't that social. So I didn't really have much of a social aspect of it, believe it or not. The only way I did do a lot of social stuff is like I joined like some clubs and I was an RA for a couple of years, but again, it's just more work based than it was like just relational. And I guess I was like a little bit relationally stunted to say the most
Mhm.
part, where I felt I could be comfortable with, especially my manager. And maybe like even in a new workplace with all these strangers, like here are people that have worked here for much longer than me. And I'm always like, what if I say something wrong or like, how do I know what I'm saying is part of what they're looking for? And so I really didn't do a lot in conversation with other people, but I really hoped like my hard work, my again, QED, like the hard work I did and what I demonstrated was good enough to validate my competency, that I was worth, like getting hopefully a salary raise or something or being on the team. But I don't think people really knew me. And if anything, I think in some cases, a lot of people misunderstood me because
Mhm.
sometimes, like the year in reviews, like, my manager would share things like, that's what you saw, or like, that's how you took my actions. Like, no, like, this is what I was trying to do. And I was like, okay. And on the other side, though, I felt like those that were visible were really boisterous in some cases, like, or they're really, I remember like thinking like, my one coworker, I don't know why, but Gino would always go to my manager's office and talk about like the weekend or like talk about like what they did or did they catch the football game. And I just saw that as like brown nosing. Like we're at work.
Mhm.
Like why are you talking about personal items at work? And it was just one of those things like where I just didn't understand why that was important and what was going on. And I think when eventually, after working there for a couple of years, like I wasn't the one that was getting promoted. I wasn't the one that was being noticed. That I just felt like, oh, there's favoritism going on, and people that, brown nosed or did those things were the ones that were getting promoted. And they were the ones that also got a lot more grace, like in meetings when they would
Mhm.
share things that like, that doesn't make sense. That's not what we're talking about. And I'm like, oh, okay, okay. And I just felt like, everyone got the trophy and kind of a thing. And it was like hard work. Like, why was I working so hard for it? Like here's some people that aren't working that hard and yet they're getting all the goals in a way. So, early career, that's a lot of memories that I have of just what went on.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot that I can relate there too, because as I said, being relational wasn't natural for me. And so my inclination is, oh, if I just work hard, if I just let my work do the talking for me, then everything will work out. But as I'm hearing from you, it wasn't actually the case. You didn't actually get the promotion. You didn't actually see the work translate into the kind of results that you wanted.
Yeah. And it's kind of like disappointing, right? Because your whole goal is to do well. I'm not trying to slack off. I'm not trying to like hide. But again, it's sometimes when it's not either recognized or not seen is one of those challenges that we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What
Coming
do you,
back to my experience of teaching yoga, I remember like spending so many hours working on my sequences and hoping that that would be the thing that would get me more and more classes. But a lot of the owners weren't actually there to actually see that. So it took something different in my relationship with them to help me build my career. So um, I think this is a great sort of segue into something that I want to talk about is some of the limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
And so um, I love that you've already put into the chat, you know, other people having similar experiences. As I'm presenting some of these limiting beliefs, love for you to just, put on a scale of 1 to 10, one being like, no, don't really relate, totally fine if you don't, and 10 being like, yeah, that's me, that's what I'm like going through. And it's not to say that this is right or wrong, it's just a way of seeing, oh, this is a belief that I have that might be either helping me or holding me back.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to quickly share my screen again, and hopefully everyone can see it. So I'll just leave it on the full screen here. We already alluded a bit to this, that if I work hard, people will notice me. And I think that's a really natural belief that we would have, especially as you said, Jim, being STEM, that we're often hired for our technical abilities. And that's often what we studied in university. And in that environment, yes, we are rewarded that if you work hard, study hard, get good test results, you will be noticed. And there are ways inside of an organization that requires something more in order to be visible, noticed, and then for also your career to grow. And that is the other side of being more relational, being responsible for our own visibility, that we need to take ownership for being seen and translating the value that we are spending so much time working hard on and helping managers, our team, our organization understand the value. And as you said, Jim, like oftentimes you're misunderstood. And so it's our job to actually help um, make that understanding land for our managers, our organization. And so the reframe that I want to propose to everybody here is it's my responsibility to help others understand the value I'm creating. So it's going from just working hard and hoping people will notice me to, okay, I'm going to do my best to see how I can help others better understand me. And so without going into the practical tools of that, we're just working with the mindset here. And so I'm curious if you have some relatability here, put it in the chat to let us know. And so let other people know that if they're in that similar belief, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? If I work hard, then I will be noticed.
We've got a few slew of people. We've have 110, a seven, a few sixes, and actually, believe it or not, a few lower numbers too, but definitely a lot more on the 5+ side of things, and people responding. Um, But I think it's interesting, like there is that element, right? If I work hard, people will notice me, and then compare that to your responsibility to get others to understand the value that you're creating. I'm curious there, like Leo, let's say I'm a four, or even like let's say a three. Brandon gave us a three. Like, how much is this still relevant and true in terms of no matter what, it's still your responsibility to help others understand the value I'm creating? Like, do you
Yeah.
have some thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think even if you don't fully resonate with this belief, if I work hard, people will notice me. I think it's important to still take responsibility for our own visibility. And that's, I think, even true even outside of the workplace, of if we want to maintain relationships, if we want to have connection, meaning, and impact in our lives, certainly in the professional world, that we still need to take a stand for what we think, what we feel, what our opinions are. And so, if you don't fully subscribe to, working hard and hoping people will notice me, I still think it's a great way of being, and allows you to have the most opportunity and most possibility inside of the workplace. And so,
Well, one of the things that come to mind as you share that is like so many times that even if I say stuff today, right? Um, like I can say stuff that somebody misunderstood, or I didn't realize they mistook the work that I did in a different way. And so I'm not getting the credit or the value. And I think like one of the things I tell people is like, everything is subjective, right? And even though you may objectively have an opinion on something, if you don't share it, they will interpret it subjectively. And what's great about when you talk to people is that having these conversations helps recalibrate the relationship. Like I'm recalibrating, oh, when I do this, I thought it was this, but it's
mhm,
being taken this way. So I need to index in this way. And then I'm also able to understand, like, hey, how do I best work with this person so that they will see things in that manner, right? So I recall like having to tell my manager, like, hey, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but here's how I hope that you would take this in that way. And that's part
yeah,
of that is like, I'm doing my hard work, hoping that you'll take it a certain way, but please don't take it the wrong way. I don't know if I feel like I'm blabbering a little bit,
mhm.
but there's a little of that
I
subjectivity,
like that. I
objectivity
like that.
calibration, right?
I'm hearing, by being more communicative, other people can learn more about you, and
Yeah.
vice versa. I can learn more about them, and that leads to another skill, which is being able to collaborate better. And that happens over time by really nurturing a relationship, getting to know the dynamic, getting to know what other people's weaknesses and strengths are, and also letting other people know of my weaknesses and strengths, so that teamwork and collaboration just becomes more natural down the road. So there's just already so many people sort of chiming in the chat
Mhm.
about the importance of advocating for oneself.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to speak on this next one, Jim. Um, the second belief that I think is pretty common, and we'll find out from the chat, is I have ideas, but I have a fear of speaking up. And you already spoke a little bit to this in your story.
Mhm.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on this belief?
Yeah. So, like a lot of times, I remember growing up, like I was wrong, and it was kind of humiliating to be wrong. And there were sometimes like, not harsh penalties, but it was almost like there was a penalty for not giving you the right answer, right? And I think because that fear of failure sometimes exists, or maybe in my mind being too perfectionistic, like I don't want to share an idea until like it is perfectly formed in my head. And I remember in team meetings though, sometimes like other people would share and they're just like speaking without even like processing what they thought. And in real time, they're sharing and they're contradicting themselves and they're correcting themselves. Like, oh my gosh, you're just wasting my time. And like this is taking way longer and it's painful. And I didn't want to be that person either to do that to other people as well. And so I'll like, I'm just gonna like not say anything. And then by the time when it like I felt like it was time to say something, like we ran out of time in the meeting too, right? So I'm like, okay, well, in some cases I was relieved I didn't have to share, but in other cases I was like frustrated that I didn't get to share. And then guess what? The idiot that shared so much stuff I would say just, spewed a lot of um, ignorance to the team and maybe like just even confuse people was the one that eventually got promoted or got credit for a lot of things. Like, no, that's not what the person said, right? But like, it was just weird, like just how much sharing of ideas was more valued than the actual having the right idea or correct idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to the fear of speaking up, as you said. For me, it's actually about a fear of being disapproved, fear of
Mm,
looking bad, fear of getting it wrong, and then therefore being disapproved, and then feeling the disconnection, the temporary disconnection in relationship when there could be that potential for being disapproved.
mm,
And so by nature, I would just shut down and actually, it's safer to not say anything, even though I might feel intuitively this is a great idea or this would really help solve this particular problem. I think in general, there's a leaning towards safety, which is let's not speak up
mhm.
versus let's take a little bit of a risk and create opportunity for new ideas, new solutions, new opportunity to learn about someone or something. But it takes a bit of risk. It takes a bit of courage to actually speak up there.
Yeah.
So,
I want to pull something Kathy said in chat.
mm,
Mentioned that I've seen people on one team is static and then moves to another team and flourishes, and how much like the environment and and comfortability to share, right? I think it's part of that psychological safety environment. And I have to agree. Like I felt like that was me too. Like when I moved from one team to another, like I did so much better. But it was like my manager, I think, worked harder to pull me out of my shell to help me to share.
mm-hmm,
But then that manager was a good manager and got promoted and then went back to another bad manager, And then like, oh great, like I can only perform when I have good managers. And that's such a self-limiting challenge, right? So, I think this is where like it's also like, yes, environments can help us to perform better, but we can't wait for the perfect environment to be able to do
mm-hmm.
our best work. And like I think that's why this is so important that like we have to overcome our own insecurities in some of these things as
Yep,
well.
yep. In the ideal world, all the managers would create the psychologically safe space for us to speak up. And what I'm hearing from you, Jim, is like we can also be leaders in the space. We can speak up and inspire the team and help grow that capacity. Um, and so I love that like turning around of like we can take responsibility again. And so this new belief that I want to propose to everybody is speaking up is a way of helping the team create better outcomes, as opposed to speaking up will lead to disapproval, or speaking up will lead to conflict, or speaking up will lead to XYZ. We can hold the possibility that speaking up will create better outcomes for the team, not just technically, but even relationally. Any other thoughts, Jim, before we move to our final belief?
Um, yeah, I just want to resound so much like again, like that's I think like the harsh part of, early on in your career or as, as an individual contributor, like where you can get stuck is if, right, like you can't elevate yourself in times of challenge, right? Just in general. And so, sharing of ideas in times of challenge, like that's the growth opportunity. I remember so much in my career, I focused too much on the work, but not necessarily the skills and the growth in the process of the work, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like I was so much more about like getting my hard work done and achieving my goals, but not doing them in a healthy way that helped me to grow. And that's so much more valuable than the paycheck at the end, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's where like what you're sharing is so much more important is like, yeah, your ideas are valuable. And you may fear like all these thoughts of not being something or like, hey, that's not fair. But I mean, those that are most valuable are the ones that are able to overcome or find solutions in challenging situations. And I think that's
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
the general principle in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hearing the principle of, as I'm sure many of us heard, it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's the actual growth personally and professionally that happens in wanting to speak up.
Yeah.
And just like it wasn't for me like getting that yoga class or that extra teaching opportunity. Yes, it was important, and it was this ability to be able to use my voice to connect with people, to leave an impact. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love what you're sharing there. The last one is I don't want to be seen as arrogant or a know-it-all
Mm,
or whatever else, what other additional adjective that you want to fill in the blank there.
mm,
And again, I'd love to hear from the group here in the chat if there's any resonance on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, yep, that's me, 100%. One is like, no, not really, and that's okay too. And curious again, Jim, any relevance for you in your early days when you felt like you were starting out? Did you have any of those beliefs
yeah.
about being too much if you spoke up?
I think like when I think about this posture that I wanted to have, that I didn't want to come off like a know-it-all. And again, like I remember when I was working with people, it wasn't like I worked with other like early career people. Like it was more so like I'm working with some people that have been here for a long time. And surely they have thought of all these things beforehand, right? Or like I don't want to like again, I just felt like when other people were doing it, they were being rude, right, and arrogant. So then I didn't want to be that person either. And so like I'm trying to think back like where that really comes from. And the only thing that I could think about is like, you know, growing up in a family where like parents had so much authority and like even if they were wrong, you had to like treat them like they were right.
Mm,
Might have been a part of it. But yeah, ultimately sometimes I feel like I treated my managers or my leadership like my parents. And but also like in at school, like at university, you've got like PhDs and like my TAs that are like, working on their dissertations. They know all this stuff. And like, I would ask questions and sometimes they would just be a little bit more like, what do you know? Like,
mm,
that's not true. Like, I'm a master's student or I'm working on my PhD, right? Like the space to just ruminate and think about and critically think, I think is such a lost place for people to have safety in processing through thoughts and ideas. And maybe that's where it's like people can take you as what you're saying as being arrogant. And so that's why like I don't think a lot of us have time to just be curious and feel like we can all contribute and share perspectives and work from that collaboratively. It was just either like, no, this is not it, or this is not the fastest way to get there. And so it's like, okay, fine. Like, who am I to say that I know more than you? And then sometimes it's like the path of least resistance in a way too.
mhm. Yes. Yeah. For me, I experience some of the second belief of fear of speaking up, not wanting a mistake, and then swinging all the way to the other side. It's like, well, if I speak up, then I don't want to be arrogant. They sort of go hand in hand for me. Kind of what you're speaking to of like when I'm in front of somebody who I consider to be an authority figure, who am I considering all of their expertise and their credentials for me to say anything.
Hmm.
And so again, it's another way for me to just sit back and be safe and not actually say anything.
Hmm.
And I like what Brandon is saying also in the chat here. It's like at the end of the day, everyone's going to have their own perceptions of me. They can think I'm arrogant or not. I think what you're speaking to, Jim, is it's important to critically think and just say it anyways and work out our ideas in real time in order for us to actually get to more truth or more understanding.
Hmm.
And so the reframe that I'm proposing is, yeah, I don't have all the answers. I think I have some, and I'm curious to know more. I
Yeah.
think that the curiosity keeps me open, keeps me from being overly arrogant or thinking that I know everything. And it opens me up to asking questions and finding out because I don't have all the answers. And so I think if you present yourself that way to managers or to your teammates, you won't come off as arrogant or knowing it all. In fact, it's saying that I don't have all the answers. Let's find out together.
Hmm. Playing on like Brandon's comment, I really love like what he wrote here because I think it pulls something that like I didn't see before. And this whole area of like no use worrying about what others think. Like my whole life has been taught about to think about what others think or like worry about other people's think.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know like how many other people do that, but like for me it's part of my probably part of my like Korean culture. Like your job is to always read the room, think about what other people are thinking and then from it like say things, right? Like and I think like we still have that just in American culture, like, hey, read the room, right? Like, hey, be sensitive to what's going on, be aware. But I think like in some cases, like my culture was hyper that. Like it took it
Mm-hmm.
to a whole nother level where like you are like, you're reading the room and you have to care. And if somebody gets upset, you have to apologize because that's your fault where I love like in American culture, it's like, no, you want to be unapologetically authentic in yourself and feel like you can share. And you want to do that respectfully, but it's hey, like you have that space, you own that space, and it's yours to occupy, and you should be diligent to use it because again, if you don't, then you're not really contributing, right? And I think it's a paradigm difference. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's, and then you have to know what is the culture that is being practiced at work here, because, you're at work, you're not at home, and I think for me, like, look back at all these, like, I was bringing my I was bringing my home values to work and I was treating everybody else like you were at my house kind of a thing, or like what I
Mm-hmm.
grew up with, which I don't think is fair, right? Like, there's a lot of people from G Vernova here. Like, so I'll use that as an example. Like, hey, if I don't embrace GE Vernova's culture, and this is the culture that we want to thrive as a company and it's going to get us there, then we all have to have the same mission, vision, and values. And that's what defines the culture. Then, hey, speaking up and individuality and being respectful of that is something that we all share in practice. And I have to participate in that as well. That's my fiduciary responsibility as a GE Vernova employee, right? And then we have a lot of Honeywell people here, so I'm going to give props to Honeywell and Wabtec. Like, hey, you guys also have different cultures, and I'm sure it might be nuanced or different, but it's not fair to like say, well, in my old workplace we don't do that, and then bring that to a new company. It's like, no, we all have to standardize to one corporate culture, and we have to learn to embrace that. And I think that's a little bit of like I think application that I'm kind of also taking away from our conversation here too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm really hearing coming to the workplace with the present moment um, understanding of what is this culture and what's mine and what's the organization's, and to not bring my past into the present day dynamics. Be informed by it, but
Mhm.
recognize that my manager isn't my mom or dad, or my family isn't my teammates,
Yeah.
that we can now start to see them as a peer, which is where I want to go next with you, because this was
Mhm.
a new idea that you shared with me. I was like, oh, I never thought about that. I never really considered that my managers can be seen as my peer. So I want to now dive a little bit now into like what do managers actually want? If they don't want some of those limiting beliefs that we presented, you know, what do they want um, when it comes to communicating, collaborating, being visible?
Yeah, and I think this is sometimes hard to do. Again, if there's some conversations earlier about like managers creating a safe space for us to operate in. And it's interesting is they may want this, but they may still do this. It doesn't change what they still want. And I think what they want from us as I think as employees is sometimes just to take ownership of the situation and not necessarily be responsible for the outcome. And what I mean by that is like having agency to say, hey, I'm going to do what it takes for the outcome now, because that's my job. You're giving me this job. Now, the manager's job is the maybe overall outcome that you and your peers are all working on and make sure that like you're not over indexing too much or you're calibrating in a way that everyone can work together. So they have that ownership, but in the space and the scope that you have, you've got ownership. So, like learning to speak up and advocate or share your thoughts and ideas, or hey, if you're calibrating with the rest of the team on what your contribution is going to do, then I think it's very important that you have to speak up and say, hey, I think it would be better if Shannon were to do this maybe in a way, because then it allows Tara to be able to do this, and then Brandon can do that, and then I could bring my piece in. I think that's going to dovetail a lot better for us. I think that's important for us to be able to share, but like my very early career version of me would have been like, I'm not gonna tell Shannon what to do. That's her job. Like,
Mm,
I'm not gonna speak up for Tara. She should speak up on her own. And like Brandon, he's gonna say something anyways if he has something to say. So why would I speak for him? And I would just sit in my corner, wait till everybody had something to say, and then I'd be like, I don't want to do that. And then it'd be too late, right? And then I feel forced to do something that I think is gonna be subpar, right? And I think that's where like as a manager, like why aren't like it would be very frustrating that you had this thought in your idea and like I didn't get the best of you and instead I got the worst of you because you didn't share that idea, right?
mm,
And it's just one of those things where like it's such a paradigm shift because like I think about where and I had to do this. Like I've had a lot of early career college, recent college students that I actually had a team of that I worked on. And I remember I had to create that psychological safety space. It's like, hey, if you can do it any way you want to, tell me what it is. And like I would have to like, this would be normally a 30-minute meeting. I would carve out like 45 minutes to an hour could be available. And I
mm,
just let them share, like invent and sometimes talk out because I did that because I wanted them to have more ownership. The more they spoke, the more they contributed, then they felt like they're on the hook to do it, but they would want to do it because it was their thought and idea. And my job as a manager was to like help shape that in a way that all the puzzle pieces would fit in a way and ask like, what else can I do to make sure that you can do this, right? I want to give them more agency. I want to give them more ownership. But the only way you can do that is if you speak freely in front of me and tell me what you see from your side, because the best people to tell you what needs to be done tends to be the people with what I say the boots on the ground, right? The boots on the
mhm,
ground are going to tell you what it's really like. And I think that's where like yes, as a manager, I need to create a place where they can feel like they can speak openly and candidly. But like you also, I feel like need to find a way to create that space where you can feel comfortable for that too. And I think some of the things that some people have a hard time doing is also like networking or like maybe not networking, but like relational building. Like you don't wait till like a company offsite to get to know your coworkers because that might not happen for a long time. But like, hey, you see, let's say you see Neil at the water cooler, like don't walk like by him, or even worse, I was like, oh crap, there's my manager Neil. I'm going to take the long way to go to the bathroom and hope Neil doesn't see me, right? Like those are things that I used to do, right? I would
Mm,
avoid, you know, instances that felt socially awkward, but like learn to use that as a tool to grow comfortable speaking about things. And now in hindsight, I know why Gina would go to Renee to talk to my manager about like, hey, how was your football game? You're getting a sense of a pulse. You're getting to know them so that when you have to do something, you're able to do it. And it's a lot easier. The way you're providing the grease, I think, and the lubrication, the relationship, so that you can speak up and not feel like you're stepping on toes or being disrespectful. So, as a former manager, like it's hard, right? Because sometimes also like I am two generations, away. Like, you know, I'm a, I think I'm a late Gen Xer with a lot of boomer mindset, is what I'm told. But working with millennials and Gen Z, like that's a huge gap in itself. And the only way that gap gets filled is not me creating that space, it's me allowing them to do that. And I think flip that aside, like the more you can help them to get to know you, the better they can lead you in a way.
mm,
I
yep.
just felt like I confessed as a former manager. Questions from a former manager.
I wish I worked for you. That you creating that space, the ample amount of time for them to all speak up. I'm hearing like really using those simple moments of like crossing in the hallway as a practice ground for building those relationships of just talking about your weekend, talking about your personal life, so that when it comes to being in the meeting, being on the one-on-ones, that bringing up a problem or talking about something that might be a little bit more challenging becomes easier because the rapport and trust is already there.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing the paradigm shift being from I want to avoid my manager and it being fear based, really operating from a place of fear, to how can I take ownership of this moment, to now in my how I seeing it as being service oriented.
Yeah.
How can I serve the team by making these small adjustments, doing something that's a little bit risky or uncomfortable? And I
Mhm.
think as Anne shared, like doing the hard work, quote unquote, of establishing relationships and contacts.
Yeah, the
So
hard work isn't the
yeah.
degree, right? It's not the engineering. And I think sometimes we're fooled to like, hey, I'm going to go to this company and I'm going to build rockets. Or like, hey, I'm going to this company and I'm going to build, the ultimate trash can for an airplane. Like, who knows, right? Like, you always think that's what you're doing, but the way you do that, the parts to that puzzle is really the conversation, communication, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The hard work for perhaps people in STEM isn't actually the technical design engineering aspect of the work. It's just shaking hands and small talking with people. I
Yeah.
know for me, when I was teaching yoga, it wasn't the hour of teaching that was hardest. It was actually afterwards and having to small talk and chat with all of the students after that was the hardest part for me, actually.
Yeah.
So, now sort of coming to full circle here, I'd love to hear if there's, one or two things, Jim, and I'll also share some of maybe a takeaway for me. Like
Mm.
what would you say is one thing someone could like really easily work on if they want to be more visible, if they want to be more skillful in communication?
Man, I'll give you three, and I say like don't do all three, but it depends where each person is at. Okay. One is if talking in public and sharing ideas to strangers is hard, I tell people join your local Toastmasters. Like I cannot find a better organization that supports your ability to communicate thoughts and ideas in a logical, coherent manner, but also in a way that other people would better receive your information by joining a Toastmasters. And the crazy thing, they're like all over the place and they're very like free to cheap, right? Your company may have a local Toastmasters club, in fact. So that would be one. So for those that want to work on their public speaking and just sharing of ideas in your team. But second is like for those of you that hate like social hours or networking or like, hey, we're doing a company thing, like learn to to have those small talk conversations and realize that is probably the hard work, not the engineering part, right? It's the hard work is the one that you don't want to do. It's not the one that you want to do, right? And so like learn to like have networking exercises, water cooler talk and stuff like that, because it really makes the team better when they know you or you know them and your guards are down. You really can hear the best in other people because you've kind of had yourself the ability to kind of frame people as people and not necessarily, obstacles in the way of getting to your destination, right? So that might be like a simpler task. But number three, more specifically for your manager, is share with your manager this challenge that you have. Like, hey, I love to share more of my team. I just sometimes have difficulty giving it to everybody because of XYZ. And I know that's my challenge that I have, but I could use some support in that. Or
Mhm.
maybe you can call on me and I'll feel more comfortable sharing if you call on me versus me raising my hand. And that's one way. It's like saying, hey, let your manager help you the way you need help. Don't expect them to know how you need help or what help you need and help and force them to guess and bring that out to you. Like, don't make their job harder in that case as well.
Yep.
So pick one of them, I would say, for you guys, and then like allow yourself to develop. And then once you've done one, add the other ones on top of it in that way. What do you
Yeah,
think, Leo? What are some
I
things that
I like the last one a lot. I really like enrolling our team, our managers in like the goals that we have. Like, hey, this is something I'm working on. Can you help me with that?
Mhm,
Um, I think another thing that we can add on to that inside of a meeting, if the manager already knows that this is something you're working on, is just simply raising your hand. That's like the first step. Maybe speaking and saying words out loud is already a big step. Just raising the hand gets you in the door, and the manager be like, "Oh, I see Leo's got his hands up. Let me give him the space." And I think if saying something, let's say that um, might be risky, try doing something that is actually going to bring more connection, like giving it an acknowledgement.
mm,
Hey, Jim, last week when you did XYZ, I really love that you did that. Thank you for that. And
yeah.
I think it's just an easy way of bringing connection, and it's not going to bring any conflict or rock the boat. It's actually going to bring people closer together. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I like that. That's more proactive rather than responsive to a situation in a way.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Uh,
so
uh,
love to hear from the audience as we close up here. If there's any takeaways from today, what are you learning? What do you want to work on in this next few months between now and the conference?
and if anybody wants to raise their virtual hand and maybe even come on and share with us on camera, that'd be great too. Yeah. Oh, here's a question. Ryan's asking, most of this talk discussed visibility in the workplace as a full-time employee. How would you apply these concepts in an internship or other short-term position?
Mm, well, I think internships and short-term positions, that is a great opportunity to actually start building those relationships so that if somewhere down the road you want to continue working for that organization, then there's already that relationship and network that's established. And you can even um, preface in meetings or with your team saying, "Hey, I know I'm only an intern and I'm short term here, and if you think this would be useful, I have a couple of these ideas. I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but this is just my thoughts." That's what comes up for me initially. Curious what you think, Jim.
Yeah, I echo that tremendously. And in fact, when I mentor or coach people that are doing internships or something part-time, I tell them the work is there really to help you to learn the social skills and build trust and relationships. Because there is nothing that you could do probably as an intern that is going to be really of significant contribution, especially unless you've got the relationship where people are going to trust what you say, right? Or do something different. Your real goal there is to learn and take away from things in what you do. And so, yeah, finding the way to learn how to do things their way and asking a lot of conversations to better recalibrate, how you learn things in school or how you learn it from a different company, but like how this company wants it done is probably the greatest trust building exercise that you would do with a company. I think that's the greatest value to index on,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm hearing really just showing your hunger, your desire, your determination, just through asking a lot of questions, being open, staying curious, and just building those relationships early on.
Yeah. Um, Got to wrap it up in a little bit, Leo. Can't believe it's already top of the hour. But thank you so much for being here. And then some of the things that I definitely wanted to again just highlight is Leo's going to be with us at the STEM Connect conference in Seattle. And so love to have each one of you join us. I put the link also in the chat box as well. Where we're filling up a lot of the details on the different speakers, but Leo is going to be one of the people there. And one of the fun things that we do is on Wednesday night we do dinner with the trainer, so you'll have a chance to like maybe even have dinner with Leo or dinner with some of the other trainers, and just really have these type of we this is part of that social conversation that to help bridge a lot of those challenges and help you to feel more comfortable with the people that are going to be leading the workshops and sessions at the conference. And one of the things, actually, I'd be very interested, put in the chat box. I'd love to hear if you were to have after the conference. I'm trying to, see if Leo would be willing to do this on Saturday. I would call touring with a trainer. So if you're not from the Seattle area, and on Saturday after the pro conference, you wanted to like get to know the immediate Seattle area, then would you be interested in touring? Like maybe go walk out, go check out the Space Needle, maybe the Cholula glass, and then just kind of walk out. Where else would we go to? Like the Pikes Marketplace,
Mm.
check out the first Starbucks. What are some of your favorite stuff down there, Leo?
Pike Market for sure, 100%. I love the stall where they throw the fish, and they
Yeah.
do a whole show about that. So I've got Saturday open. I'm planning to go and tour Seattle with you. So I'm excited for that. I'd love to see if anyone else is up for that too.
Yeah, walk by the gum wall all the way down to the Ferris wheel. It's a fun little thing though as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, love to have you guys all there. And again, if you have any thoughts, questions on this, feel free to reach out and let us know. And Leo, um, maybe I should have done this earlier, but do you have a link to your LinkedIn profile? Maybe you could throw in there, and that'll be something that people can follow up and connect with you also for.
Sure. I will actually just drop my website because my
Perfect.
LinkedIn, yeah, that's my website there. Um, Great to have this time with you, Jim. Learned a lot from you. I'm always learning from you. So I'm really fortunate to be able to have this hour, getting to hear everybody in the chat. And I'm looking forward in October to meet some of you in person. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and leading this conversation. All right. Well, that is all for our show, and I'd love to have you guys all join our next webinar, and we'll see y'all again soon. Bye.